The red lights flickered to life. The music faded. The countdown hit 0. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Fox News Special Edition, the host announced with a practiced smile. Tonight, a generational showdown between one of Hollywood's most outspoken voices and the rising face of conservative America. Buckle up, folks. The camera panned to the studio audience, a sea of mixed red hats and skeptical brows. On the left, dressed in a sleek charcoal suit, sat Sean Penn, 63, his face as sharp as ever, eyes burning with contempt before the first word had been spoken. He adjusted his mic and cracked his knuckles. He was ready to brawl. Across from him, poised and focused, sat Karoline Leavitt, 27, deep blue blazer, gold crucifix necklace barely visible at her collar. She wasn't smiling. Not yet. She was here to fight too, but her weapons weren't volume and venom. They were preparation, steel nerves, and the underestimated force of conviction. Penn didn't wait for questions. "Let's cut the polite crap," he snapped, turning directly to her. "You work for a fascist. You stand there, with your perfect hair and yes sir smile, propping up a man who's done more damage to democracy than any president in modern history." The crowd gasped. Fox's producers leaned forward in the control room. They had their moment early. Karoline didn't blink, but she also didn't respond yet. Sean continued, "Don't give me that look. I've been around long enough to smell propaganda when I see it. I've made movies about people like Trump, tyrants in Armani suits. You, Karoline, you're just the newest accessory, a polished little puppet repeating his greatest hits." The liberal side of the audience laughed. One woman in the front row clapped loud enough for the mic to pick up. Karoline finally moved. She sat forward, hands clasped calmly. But Penn wasn't done. "You say you love America?" His voice rose, serrated now. "You love an America where women are told to smile and stay quiet, where facts are optional and prayer is policy? You love an America where a convicted man can waltz back into the White House while your generation cheers like it's a football game?" Karoline slowly reached for her mic, but again Sean pounced. "You pray on camera, fine. Pray all you want, but don't wrap your blind loyalty in a Bible and tell us it's patriotism." That was it. The studio buzzed. The crowd split in half, some booing, some standing in approval. The host tried to interject. "Let's give Karoline a chance but Sean waved him off. "One more thing," Penn growled. "You call me an elite? Damn right I'm elite, duh. You know why? Because I actually give a damn. I've been on the ground in war zones, in refugee camps. You read talking points in front of a flag and pretend that's bravery. Spare me." Finally, Karoline spoke. "You done?" she asked quietly. Sean tilted his head, smug. "Not even close." Karoline adjusted her mic with the calm of someone about to draw a sword. "Well, I've got time," she said. "But be careful, Mr. Penn. Sometimes the fire you start burns your own house down." The crowd leaned in. Round 2 was coming. And she wasn't here to survive. She was here to strike back. The silence after Karoline's last line lingered for a moment too long. Sean Penn sat back, amused, or at least pretending to be. He tapped his pen against the table like a metronome, as if keeping time before his next verbal assault. But Karoline didn't wait. She leaned into her microphone, her voice crisp and steady. "Mr. Penn, I respect your years in the entertainment industry. Truly. But tonight you walked in here not as a humanitarian, not even as an activist, but as a bully. And I'm not here to be bullied." A murmur rippled through the crowd. MAGA hats nodded. Even a few neutral faces turned thoughtful. Penn scoffed. "A bully? Please. I'm the one calling out fascism. You're the one enabling it in a pantsuit." Karoline ignored the jab. She gestured toward the massive screen behind them. "Let's take a trip down memory lane," she said with calm resolve. The screen flickered on. A grainy video clip played. Sean Penn seated on a red carpet in 2010 during a film festival interview. "I think President Chavez really understands the working class in a way we don't often see in American politics," he said, a wineglass in hand. Gasp broke out. The host looked at the control room in disbelief. Karoline didn't smile. She didn't have to. That's you, praising Hugo Chavez, a man who jailed dissenters, censored media, and drove his country into starvation. And yet here you are calling me a fascist for working with the American president, my country freely elected. Penn's smirk cracked for the first time. You're twisting context, he snapped. Karoline didn't blink. No, I'm playing your own words, unedited. You talked about democracy like you were a warrior, but now you sound more like a washed-up ideologue grasping at relevance by hurling insults at someone young enough to be your daughter. The crowd broke into applause, loud, sustained applause, but Karoline wasn't finished. You mocked my faith, my age, my job title. You called me a puppet. You know what that tells me? She turned fully toward him now, her tone sharpening. It tells me that you're scared. Scared that someone from my generation, someone who believes in tradition, in borders, in God, could actually have influence. Scared that the future doesn't belong to Hollywood anymore. It belongs to real Americans. Penn clenched his jaw. You don't get to lecture me on fear. I've faced dictators with guns. And yet a Catholic girl with a mic rattles you more than they ever did, Karoline replied without missing a beat. The audience lost it. A few stood. A chant began again. Karoline, Karoline, show. The host tried to regain control. Let's give both guests a chance to. But Karoline held the momentum like a seasoned general. You said I don't know real America? I grew up in a family that pinched pennies to pay the heating bill. I didn't inherit clout. I didn't get cast in glamorous roles or invited to award shows. I earned every step I took, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Penn finally snapped. You think you were the first patriot with a persecution complex? He barked, rising from his chair slightly. You stand behind a man who tried to overturn an election. That's not tradition, that's tyranny. Don't you dare lecture me on freedom. Karoline stood too. I stand behind a man who believes in the Constitution, who was attacked by the very institutions meant to protect us. You think you're defending democracy, but all you're defending is your own fading spotlight. It was raw, it was personal. The studio was now at a full boil. Sean Penn stared at her, his chest rising and falling. He wanted to scream something back, but he hesitated, because somewhere deep down, in that actor's soul trained to recognize a shift in narrative, he knew he'd lost the crowd. Karoline adjusted her blazer, sat back down, and looked straight at the camera. I'm not asking for applause, I'm asking for truth. And if you think that's dangerous, maybe you're not as brave as you think. The segment ended there, but the war was only beginning. By the time the credits rolled, the Fox News studio had turned into something resembling a political battlefield. The control room buzzed, the audience wouldn't stop chanting, and producers were already clipping sound bites for the network's social media feeds. But it was the internet that truly detonated. Within minutes, #Penn vs. Leavitt, #Hollywood Meltdown, and #Gen Z vs. Boomer were trending on X, formerly Twitter. A clip of Karoline saying a Catholic girl with a mic rattles you more than dictators amassed over 22 million views in under an hour. Conservative influencers declared it a watershed moment. One viral post read, Karoline Leavitt didn't just defend Trump. She dismantled a Hollywood titan with calm facts and faith. That's what leadership looks like. Even some liberal pundits couldn't ignore it. CNN's Breonna Keller admitted, like her or not, Leavitt handled herself with precision and poise. Sean Penn seemed more like an angry uncle than a political thinker. Meanwhile, Sean Penn's name was getting roasted. Memes flooded the timeline, his shocked expression juxtaposed with Bible verses, MAGA slogans, and even movie posters. Mystic regret. Fast times at Fox News High. Dead man talking. One particularly brutal meme showed Karoline standing over a digitally aged Penn with the caption, when Gen Z gives Grandpa a history lesson. But perhaps the most devastating blow came from Donald J. Trump, who posted on Truth Social. Karoline Leavitt destroyed Hollywood loudmouth Sean Penn tonight. What a performance. Penn looked like he forgot his lines. A total woke failure. Karoline is the future. That post alone triggered a secondary media storm. The next day, Sean Penn appeared on MSNBC for damage control, but it didn't help. I'm not sorry for what I said, he muttered. But, yeah, maybe I underestimated her. His voice lacked the venom from the night before. He looked tired. Twitter noticed. The top reply beneath the MSNBC clip read, "That's the face of a man who got outacted in real life." Meanwhile, Caroline was back in Washington, but she wasn't hiding. She walked past the White House press pool the next morning, head high, crucifix necklace glinting in the sun. One reporter shouted, "Any comment on last night's debate?" She paused, smiled, and simply said, "Actions speak louder than insults." That clip alone hit 9 million views in 12 hours. Soon after, rumors swirled that Trump's team was considering Caroline as a 2028 VP candidate. The campaign didn't confirm or deny, but insiders began calling her the conservative AOC. Liberal activists launched campaigns calling for Hollywood to silence Sean Penn's political rants, arguing he had hurt their cause more than helped it. "We need thinkers, not screamers," wrote one viral thread. Caroline flipped the narrative with nothing but grace. By the end of the week, The Atlantic published a piece titled "How Karoline Leavitt Became the Voice of Young Conservatism and Why the Left Should Be Worried." The final word came from Caroline herself in a post that sealed the moment in political history. "I didn't grow up with a stage or a script, but I learned early that truth doesn't need applause to be powerful. Thank you, America. We're just getting started."